They thought I was finished. They thought that the moment we buried my wife, I would crumble, that I would sign whatever they put in front of me, nod at whatever they decided, and quietly disappear into some back bedroom while they divided up everything she and I had spent 43 years building together. They were wrong. But before I tell you what happened, before I tell you how I stood in my own kitchen and watched my son's face go completely white, I need to tell you about a Tuesday morning in October, about 6 weeks after the funeral, when I found a small brass key taped to the back of a picture frame. And I need to tell you about Meredith. My wife's name was Meredith. She was 67 years old when she died, and she had the kind of laugh that made strangers at restaurants turn around and smile without knowing why. We met at a hardware store in 1981. She was buying weather stripping. I was buying the wrong size drill bit. She told me I had the wrong size drill bit. That was Meredith. We weren't rich people. I worked 31 years as a municipal water inspector for the city of Columbus, Ohio. Meredith did bookkeeping part-time for 3 different small businesses, a florist, a roofing company, and for the last 12 years, a small dental practice on the east side. We lived in the same house on Clover Hill Drive for 38 years. We drove used cars. We didn't take fancy vacations. We saved. I knew Meredith was careful with money. That was never a secret. But what I didn't know, what I had no idea about, was that every Thursday morning, for at least the last 16 years, she drove to the Huntington Bank on Morse Road and spent about an hour there. Every Thursday, like clockwork. I only found this out after she was gone. Her calendar was still on the counter, one of those paper desk calendars she refused to give up. And there it was, week after week, going back through the pages. HB, 9 a.m. Every Thursday. Sometimes she'd write, HB, ask about R, or HB docs ready? I thought HB was a person, a friend maybe, someone from her church group. It was not a person. Meredith passed in August from a cardiac event. It was fast. She had been having some fatigue, some shortness of breath, but the doctors thought it was stress-related. Then one morning, she sat down on the edge of the bed, looked at me with this expression I still can't fully describe. Not fear, exactly. More like she had just remembered something important. And then, she was gone. The grief is its own story. I won't spend too much time there because if you've lost someone after 43 years, you already know what that silence sounds like. You know what it's like to reach for a coffee mug in the morning and feel the whole house shift. What I will tell you is that within 11 days of the funeral, my son was sitting at my kitchen table with a manila folder. My son is 51 years old. I'll call him my son because that is what he is to me. Though some days in the weeks that followed, I had to remind myself of that. He drove up from Cincinnati with his wife, who I will call my daughter-in-law, because that is the most accurate thing I can say about her relationship to this family. She has been married to my son for 19 years. I have tried, genuinely tried, to know her. She has never made it easy. She was the one who brought the folder. She handed it to my son at the table, but it came from her bag. My son cleared his throat. He said he and his wife had been talking, and given my age, I was 68 at the time, and given that the house was a lot to manage alone, they thought it made sense to start thinking about next steps. I asked what next steps meant. He said they'd looked into some senior living options in the Columbus area. Independent living mostly. He said some of them were really nice. He pushed the folder toward me. I didn't open it. I asked him if his mother was barely cold in the ground and he was already trying to move me out of my home. He said that wasn't what this was. His wife said it came from a place of concern. I told them both I needed some air, and I walked out to the backyard and stood next to Meredith's garden, which was already starting to go brown at the edges because I didn't know how to take care of it the way she did, and I stood there for a long time. They stayed for 4 days. In those 4 days, my daughter-in-law went through Meredith's desk. I watched her do it from the hallway. She said she was helping organize. She made a separate pile of documents that she set on the kitchen counter. When I asked what was in the pile, she said, just insurance stuff, nothing urgent. I moved the pile to my bedroom that night and locked the door. My son asked me twice about the house title. Not once, twice. The first time he framed it as curiosity. Did I know if the house was in both our names or just Mom's? Just to know what the process would look like. The second time, the night before they left, he was more direct. He said it might be cleaner to transfer the house into a family trust, one that he and his sister could help manage so that I wasn't burdened with it. I have a daughter too. She lives in Portland. She did not come to the funeral. She sent flowers and a card that said, "Thinking of you, Dad," in her husband's handwriting. She called twice in the month after. The second time, she mentioned that she'd been talking to her brother about Dad's situation. I began to understand that there was a conversation happening about me that I was not part of. After they left, the house felt different. Smaller, somehow. Heavier. I started going through Meredith's things slowly, the way you do when you're not ready to be done, but you know you have to start somewhere. Her closet, her nightstand, the little writing desk in the corner of the bedroom where she paid bills and wrote birthday cards and kept her reading glasses in 3 different places because she was always losing them. The picture frame was on the desk. It was a small frame, silver, with a photo of the two of us at Niagara Falls in 1994. We look very young. I look like I have more hair than I deserve. I picked it up to dust it, the way I was doing with everything on the desk, and something shifted. A small weight, moving. I turned it over, taped to the back of the frame with a piece of masking tape, the way you'd tape a note inside a birthday card, was a brass key. Small. The kind that opens a safety deposit box. Under the key, in Meredith's handwriting, on a strip of masking tape, HBB. Box 114. Ask for Patricia Wynn. Patricia Wynn. Not a place, a person. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bed we had shared for 38 years and I stared at the ceiling, and I thought about every Thursday morning. 16 years of Thursdays. What had she been doing? My first thought, I'll be honest with you, was fear. The bad kind. The kind that whispers ugly things. Had she been hiding money from me? Was there something she hadn't told me? Had I not known my wife after all? I have to tell you, that thought lasted about 4 hours. By the time the sun came up, I knew better. I knew Meredith. I knew the woman who drove an hour each way to sit with her cousin in the hospital for 3 weeks straight when no one else would. I knew the woman who kept every birthday card I ever gave her in a shoebox under the bed, even the years I forgot to write more than my name. Whatever she had been doing, she had done it for a reason, and the reason was not bad. I went to the Huntington Bank on Morse Road on a Wednesday morning. I asked for Patricia Wynn. Patricia Wynn was a trust and estate specialist. She had worked with Meredith for, she told me, almost 14 years. When I sat down across from her and said my wife's name, she looked at me with an expression that was professional and warm at the same time, and she said, "I've been expecting you." I said I didn't understand. She said, "Mr. Pertib." And then she said my name, and then she said, "Your wife was one of the most prepared clients I have ever worked with." She walked me through it. It took most of that morning. What Meredith had built, over 16 years of Thursday mornings, was a revocable living trust. The house on Clover Hill Drive was in the trust. Her savings, more than I had realized because Meredith had been quietly, steadily investing through the trust for over a decade, were in the trust. She had designated me as the sole trustee and sole beneficiary during my lifetime. That meant one thing, in plain terms. My son could not touch it. My daughter could not touch it. Their spouses could not touch it. No one could transfer anything or help manage anything or suggest that it might be cleaner to restructure anything. The house was mine. Everything was mine. Fully protected, fully legal, fully done. Patricia slid a folder across the desk to me. The folder had my name on it, in Meredith's handwriting. Inside was a letter. I want to tell you about that letter, but I need a moment first. You have to understand something about Meredith. She grew up poor. Her father left when she was 9. Her mother worked 2 jobs. There was never enough money, and there were always people around. Extended family, neighbors, a particular aunt, who knew there wasn't enough money and who showed up at times of crisis to take what they could. She watched it happen to her mother. She watched it happen to her grandmother. She swore it would not happen to her. She never told me about the trust. Not because she didn't trust me. The letter explained it clearly. She didn't tell me because she knew I would have told her not to bother, that I trusted our children, that everything would work itself out. She knew me. She knew I would have said that. And she knew, in the way that she knew things, that I would have been wrong. She had seen my son's wife. She had seen the way she looked at the house at Christmas, the way she asked questions about what happens eventually. She had seen my daughter pull away over the years, slowly. And she had noticed when the distance started correlating with conversations about estate planning. She wrote, "I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're reading this and laughing at me. But if I'm right, then I need you to know that you are protected. You are home. No one can take that from you. All you have to do is stay." I sat in Patricia Wynn's office and I cried in a way I hadn't let myself cry since the funeral. Patricia handed me a box of tissues and did not say anything, which was exactly right. That afternoon, I called my son. I told him I had been to the bank. I told him I had met with the trust attorney. I told him I had spent the morning going through everything Meredith had set up, and that I understood now exactly where I stood. There was a silence on the phone. Then he asked what I meant. I told him the house was an irrevocable living trust with me as sole trustee, that the title could not be transferred without my explicit initiation, and that I had no intention of initiating anything. Another silence. He said he didn't know anything about a trust. I told him his mother had been building it for 16 years. He said, quietly, that he was just trying to help. I told him I knew that. I told him I also knew what the manila folder had contained. I told him I had done some reading on senior living facilities, and while I was sure some of them were perfectly fine, I would be staying in my home on Clover Hill Drive for as long as I was capable of staying there, and that if and when I needed help, I would ask for it. He didn't say much after that. His wife, I later found out, had been in the room. I imagine the conversation after they hung up was interesting. My daughter called 2 days later. I don't know who called who first, her or her brother, but the conversation had clearly already happened. She was warmer than she'd been in months. She asked how I was doing. She said she'd been thinking about coming to visit. I told her she was welcome any time. I meant it. I love my daughter. I also know my daughter. What I said next I had prepared. I told her I appreciated that she and her brother cared about me. I told her that Meredith had left very clear instructions about the estate and that everything was settled and documented, and there was nothing to sort out. I told her I had an attorney, Patricia Wynn, who was now technically my attorney as well, having agreed to continue handling the trust, and that any questions about the estate should go through her. There was a pause. Then my daughter said, "Dad, it's not about the estate." I said, "I know, sweetheart." She heard it in my voice. I could tell. In the months that followed, something shifted. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It wasn't anger, exactly how to describe it. It wasn't anger, exactly. I'm too old for anger to take up that much space. It was more like clarity. The kind you get when you've been squinting at something for years, and then you finally put on the right glasses and you think, oh, I see it now. I started walking every morning. Meredith's garden came back. Not perfectly, but enough. I learned what she planted in the south bed and why. I found her gardening notebook, which was characteristically thorough. Labeled diagrams, planting dates, notes on what worked and what didn't. It read like her. Careful, prepared, always thinking ahead. I had dinner with my son and his wife once, in December, at a restaurant halfway between Columbus and Cincinnati. It was polite. We talked about safe things. His wife was on her phone more than she probably should have been. I ordered the same thing Meredith always ordered when we went to places like that, because I wanted to feel her in the room somehow. At the end of dinner, my son looked at me, not his wife, not the table, at me. And he said, quietly, that Mom would have wanted us to be okay. I told him I thought so too. I left it there. Some things you say what's true and then you let it be. I think about Meredith on Thursdays. Not only on Thursdays, obviously. She's with me in the morning when I make coffee and reach for the mug with the chip in it that she always said she was going to throw away, but never did. She's with me in the garden. She's with me in the garden. She's with me when I find her reading glasses, still in 3 different places. She's everywhere in that house, and I'm grateful for it. But on Thursday mornings, sometimes I drive past the Huntington Bank on Morse Road. I don't always stop. Sometimes I just drive past slowly. I think about her in there. Every week. For 16 years. Talking to Patricia. Signing things. Updating things. Thinking things through the way she always did. 5 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. She never told me. She just did it. People always said that I was the steady one in our marriage. That I was the rock. I accepted that for years because it's a flattering thing to believe about yourself. But here's what I know now. I was the one who needed the rock. She was the rock. She was the foundation under the whole thing. She just let me think otherwise because that was also, characteristically, Meredith. I'm still on Clover Hill Drive. The oak tree in the backyard lost a big limb in the ice storm last February, and I had to have it cut back, and honestly, the yard looks wrong without it. Meredith would have opinions about the yard. She would tell me exactly what to plant to fill in the gap. I'm figuring it out. My son calls every few weeks. The conversations are getting easier. I think he is genuinely working through some things, without his wife's commentary in the background. I hope so. I would like to have my son back. The one who used to call on Sunday afternoons just to talk about baseball. My daughter came to visit in March. She stayed for 3 days. On the second day, she sat in Meredith's chair in the living room and cried. And I sat across from her and let her because that was what she needed. She's not a bad person. None of them are really. They just made choices. And choices have weights. And now they're learning to carry them. The folder is on my desk. The trust documents, Meredith's letter. Everything Patricia Wynne walked me through. I look at it sometimes. Not for legal reasons. Just to feel it there. 43 years. She spent 43 years building a life with me. And she used some of that time, 16 years of Thursday mornings, to make sure I wouldn't lose it. I don't know a word big enough for that, so I'll just say what I said to her photograph on the desk, the morning after I went to the bank and understood what she had done. You always were the smartest person in the room. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it out loud. I've had a lot of time to think about what Meredith actually did. Not the legal part, the trust, the documents, Patricia Wynne, and her careful explanations. I mean the human part, the decision she made quietly over and over again for 16 years to protect something instead of just hoping it would be fine. That's not a small thing. That's a kind of intelligence I don't have a fancy word for. It's not book smart, and it's not street smart. It's something slower and steadier than either of those. It's the kind of thinking that doesn't need an audience. She never told me. She never hinted at it. She just did the work, Thursday after Thursday, and trusted that it would matter when it mattered. And here's what I keep coming back to. She was right. Not because she got lucky. Because she paid attention. She watched how people behaved when they thought no one was watching. My son's wife looking at the house at Christmas. My daughter's slow drift away that always seemed to accelerate around certain conversations. Meredith saw what I refused to see. Not because I was stupid, but because I didn't want to. There's a difference. She chose clarity. I chose comfort. That's the honest version of the story. What I know now is that the choices you make when nothing is urgent are the ones that define everything. Meredith didn't panic when things got hard. She prepared before they got hard. She built a wall during peacetime, which is the only time you actually can. By the time my son slid that manila folder across my kitchen table, the wall was already standing. She just hadn't told me it was there yet. There's something in that for me. Something I'm still learning at 68 years old. About what it means to actually take care of the people you love. It doesn't always look like warmth. Sometimes it looks like a brass key taped to the back of a picture frame. Sometimes it looks like an hour every Thursday morning, doing something unglamorous and necessary, while the person you're doing it for is home, not knowing you're doing it at all. I think about my son. I think about the man he used to be before certain influences got comfortable. He called last Sunday and we talked about baseball for 40 minutes, and it felt like something returning, slowly, the way circulation comes back to a foot that's been asleep. I'm not in a hurry. Real things take time. And I think about what I owe to Meredith's example. Not in some abstract, grateful way, but practically. She showed me what integrity actually looks like when it has no audience. It looks like consistency. It looks like showing up to the same place, doing the same quiet work. For 16 years, because you decided it was right and then you just kept deciding it. No applause. No credit. Just the work and the result. And the person you become by doing it. I'm not the Rock. I never was. But I'm still here, in the house on Clover Hill Drive, with her reading glasses in 3 different places and her gardening notebook on the counter, figuring it out. That's what she left me. Not just the house. The example.